Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and today we're going to be talking specifically about the All the Haunts Be Ours, a compendium of folk horror box set. But we're just going to be talking about the first four discs in this set, because this is a big set. So we're going to be splitting this up into some videos, and so yeah, this is my first venture inside it, and yeah, I'm going to talk about those first four discs. So I hope you can follow along, and if you've seen these movies, I would love to hear your thoughts on a lot of these things. But I'm going to be going in depth with this box set, trying at least my best. I have some notes in front of me, but along the way to help me out. But yeah, if you haven't seen these, just as a big spoiler warning, there's some spoilers I'm going to be talking a little bit about. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this ride and as much as I enjoy this box set. Real quick before we jump into this, this will be coming out before my 5th anniversary on YouTube, which actually will have to push back a little bit on the time, so I'm going to be updating that. So look in the description down below for the time for that. I'll be also making an announcement on the channel, just doing it in the channel feed. So I'll make sure I'll put it in multiple places. That way everyone can follow along on the right time, because something came up during the time that I initially wanted to do that. But I'm very excited for that 5th anniversary live Q&A. So if you do have any questions about that, please leave a question down below. I'll also answer some of those there. So let's actually just start off with the first film in this box set, which is a documentary, a 3-hour plus documentary, directed by Kayla Janice right here. We have Woodlands, Darks, and Days Bewitched, a history of folk horror. And this is disc 1 right here. And yeah, this is really just, Kayla Janice made this entire box set possible, along with Severin Films, and worked together in tandem because of this documentary. She just realized that I guess there was so much information out there that it became a project of hers to make this documentary, and it just keeps going and going and going, which is really great. Now, I will say this documentary, like I said, is 3 hours long, plus I guess a little bit of time. It's really divided into a few sections, more of maybe the U.S. and European folk horror. Kind of kicks off at the very beginning with the big three in folk horror: Blood on Satan's Claw, The Wicker Man, and Witchfinder General. For some reason, I'm like blanking on. I just had coffee. That's probably not a good thing before I film. But anyway, Witchfinder General with Vincent Price, which I actually have only seen one of those films. I have only seen The Wicker Man, which is a fantastic, one of my favorite films of the past few years that I've discovered, way before I started jumping into folk horror in general. But anyway, it talks about those big three, talking about the influence, and then jumps into, like I said, different areas of interest throughout the world of folk horror, and how it's been pretty much impacted on these communities, and then also through film. Adding in a lot of local legends mixed in with things, particular to the places and the locations that they're at. And I would say it really is more European and American centric. Obviously, this is a Western box set, of course. So we're going to see a little bit more of that. Now, there is some really awesome nods to maybe Eastern European slash Eastern Asian, so like Russian mythology and folk horror, and we also get some Japanese stuff too as well, of course, like Hironeko and whatnot. But there's some really interesting things here going on, and I could easily see this becoming a lot bigger than just, like I said, those first two areas of interest. I could see this becoming a much bigger thing. But obviously, this is a 3 hours plus documentary. It has some really cool special features on it as well. On this particular disc, there's an introduction from Kayla Janice, talking about the process and like what you're going to see in the documentary itself. It has animating folk horror, a conversation with Ashley Thorpe, which is phenomenal. There's like throughout the documentary, there's some animations that are really, really spectacular, and I think really, really great effects that are added to the documentary to make some really cool looking designs. And I think it's a really good visual nod to all the information that you're getting blasted with. Outtake, what is folk horror? It's like the definition. I guess it just didn't make it. There's also another outtake, which is about 20 minutes long, I want to say. Harvest Hymns, which is the sounds and signals of folk horror, so talking about a lot of the music that's involved, which is a really great segment. Another outtake, Terra, I'm going to say this incorrectly, Assombrosa, which is the expressions of folklore in Brazil and folk poetry. Yeah, there is a Brazilian section which talks a little bit about some folk horror that is involved, but I guess didn't make the final cut, which is really interesting. Like I said, I would love to see different world cinema just kind of tackle these things, which is another thing about this documentary in particular. There are hundreds and hundreds of films that are like referenced, and short films, documentaries, and then also, you know, feature-length films as well. And luckily, at the end of the entire documentary, in the credits, all the films are there, which is really nice. But there's also, I mean, if you don't even want to spend your time with all that, you can go to Letterboxd and then find that all the, you know, the films mentioned in the documentary. There is a list there, so that's really, really cool. So it's just like, you know, folk horror 101, and it's just a bunch of names and a bunch of numbers and all those things, like reading Genesis, right? But yeah, I really, really loved this documentary. Now, I will, like I said, it's very informative, so it's like a fire hydrant of information, but it's still very, very useful on your journey into folk horror. So I do recommend that one, and starting off with this. And so yeah, that is kind of what I would like to say about this first documentary in it, Woodlands, Darks, and Days Bewitched. All right, let's jump into disc 2, which is a 1983 film, Eyes of Fire, right here, which is directed by Avery, I'm going to say his name wrong, Krauntz, but this is, I think, his first film he directed, but he was a photographer beforehand, which is something that's very interesting. It's like a Western colonial horror. It's crazy. But like I said, 1983, and it's a visually insane film. It's really about you know, these people who are kicked out of this community, and having to kind of find their way in the wilds of America. So going from them being kicked out of this community, they have to go find their way into you know, try to find their own way into this land, and they happened into a valley that happens to be bewitched, and has some ancestral things going on, and spectral things going on, which they soon find out, which is what's really, really cool about this film. Now, this movie is actually filmed in Missouri, not too far away, about 2 hours like north of where I live, which is really, really cool. I didn't know that. Up in Stover, in the Lake of the Ozarks. I just said Stover, really, really weird. Stover, Missouri. But it's really interesting. I found a lot of like the similarities at the very beginning of this film, kind of wherein like the witch and Robert Eggers' The Witch would take from this community that is just, you know, religious, you know, they're just casting out these bad characters in their community and having to find their own way, which is, you know, in religion, that's what you get, the First and Second Baptists, right? And you get all these different denominations because nobody can get anything right, and you can see that already unfold with just how communities, especially religious communities, cannot get it together and agree on one thing or not. But I think this is really, really fantastic. It's a visual feast of a film. It gets to be really, really trippy near the end, and I love it. This is quite a way to start off the box set, and I don't want to talk too much about it because some of the visuals are like a treat to see on your own time, and it's really, really wonderful, like I said. So these benevolent spirits, they're pretty cool to see on film. Another thing I wanted to add is Dennis Lipscombe, who is like one of the main characters in this group that gets ousted and outcasted. He looks a lot like Danny Filth from Cradle of Filth, which never been a big fan of that band anyway, but for anyone who likes metal and UK black metal, I suppose, knows exactly what I'm talking about. I've always been a Demu fan anyway. But anyway, the special features here is really interesting. So let's look at the special features a little bit closer. Like I said, there are some extra things here. I've seen all of it except for the audio commentary with Colin Dickey, author of Ghostland, An American History and Haunted Places. I did not see that, but I did see The Secret in the Trees. The Secret is in the Trees, which is Nightmare USA author Stephen Thrower, who interviews the writer-director Avery Krauss, which is really fantastic. I thought it was interesting how they filmed this document, or this interview. It looked like a Zoom meeting, but they decided to put like TVs out in the middle of the woods, which was really interesting, but it was a little distracting at first, but eventually I got used to it, which was interesting. But at the same time, just hearing Avery talk about filmmaking process and still photography and his just journey into making this film was really, really cool. Which is where I found out that this is filmed in Missouri, not too far away from where I'm at. So that was a really cool extra feature. It also has Crying Blue Sky, which is the alternate longer cut of this film. I did not watch this one. I lied. I didn't see the commentary, hear the commentary or this. But I would be interested in seeing what the differences are. If anyone has seen this, let me know what the differences are down in the comment section down below. It also has a trailer, and I think it's a wonderful trailer. It looks really, really great. It's quite of its time, of the 80s, so I think it's suffice to say it's interesting. And then it also has 3 short films, which I really, really loved. And actually, I wrote a little bit about it. It has The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is like a 50s like cartoon that looks a lot like the Schoolhouse Rock. If anyone is familiar with that growing up, that's very much in the vein of what it looks like. But of course, kid-centric, and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow doesn't necessarily have a happy ending. Spoiler alert for people. But anyway, it kind of shows it in a way that's like, oh, something happened. Who knows what happens? But it's good. Transformations, which is a short film. It's a black and white short film of a woman, of various women, kind of in ceremonial glee, I guess, outside in the woods, just congregating together. Very much like witches would, right? And that's kind of just what it's showing there. I thought it was interesting. I would have to look more into that one. And then my favorite of the 3 is this short called Backwoods, which I think came out in the early 2010s and is very Lovecraftian. I think it's based on a Lovecraft short story, and about a man in the early 1900s coming across this old abandoned house. At least he thinks it's abandoned. Finds this book, and then a man shows up who is living in the house and describes what he's seeing in the book. Because this book has some really crazy drawings and paintings that are etched into it, and kind of describing what it is. And it's very eerie. It's very unsettling. It's very short, but it's certainly very, very effective. So this Eyes of Fire just second disc is just amazing. I think this was a fantastic way to start off this entire journey of the films, right, outside the documentary. And I think it really does kick you into gears. Like, I'm ready for a very wild time that honestly could go anywhere. And I highly recommend Eyes of Fire and some of these shorts as well. So, great disc. All right, disc 3 is a film that I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing. Leptirica, I think, is how you say it. And I'm also going to butcher the director's name, George Kadejvek, and he's a Yugoslavic Serbian filmmaker right here. So we have a Yugoslavic tale as well of a vampire. The she butterfly is what Leptirica stands for, and it came out in 1973. Yeah, it's really about like a village out in the middle of nowhere, and getting plagued by a vampire that's picking off people one by one, especially like the miller. At the very, very beginning, there is a person working at the mill, providing flour for the entire village. He's attacked by a vampire, and they're trying to figure out who's doing this. And so, the next person has to, take his job, because otherwise people are going to starve in this village, and crazy things keep happening. And so, but anyway, this is a crazy movie too, nonetheless. It's a movie that's very visual and also very sensorial, in the sense that, like, you're hearing a lot of sounds going on. There's a lot more in the background than the visual, at least for my eyes. But there's this vampire that's going around and plaguing, this village, especially this one man in particular. But the thing I didn't like so much about this movie was it may be, a little over an hour long. But it really does just kind of center around these villagers who are just mostly drunk the whole time, mostly drunk men, going around and just trying to find this vampire and kill it in a very stupid way. But then again, I guess for this maybe more medieval tale, this is kind of what would happen, right? People would be in this fear mode, and they to try to mask it, they would just try to be a little silly with it, right? And so, drink. What do you do in this small village? You drink and you hang out with your friends and you just party and stuff. So I guess that's what this is going for. But besides that, I really wish there was a little bit more storytelling of the vampire. I really love the bookends of this tale, the very beginning of it and the very end. The last shot, I would say the last 10 minutes are very, very memorable, and some of the best part of this film, and I highly recommend getting to that part, right? But like I said, there's strong visuals here. I love the female character within this film. There's actually like some parts of this film where she is just like meandering around in nature, and just like, the camera sits there. There's like I said, there's some things going on in the background that you can hear. Like I said, there's more going on there than it is visually, but having the two combined, phenomenal, right? And I really love that. So this is really cool, kind of showing you the local legends of Yugoslavic and Serbian kind of local vampire legends. Now let's look at the special features a little bit. There is Radical Fairy Tales, which is interview with the director, which I really, really enjoyed. Getting that archival interview of him and talking a lot about, his tale, like this particular film and all the other films that are on this disc. There's actually other films he's directed, short films that are on this disc as well. There's also a short film, I'm going to say this incorrectly, which is Diary of an Inmate, but Stitchinek. So Diary of an Inmate is really a tale of a man who is running from this mysterious figure and happens to end up in a mental institution, and is constantly seeing this character until it plagues him no more. So it's very good. And then there's also another short film that is called Prisoner of Song. I won't even try to pronounce that, but Prisoner of Song is really about a male who happens upon a female who is estranged in this castle, and it really feels like a gothic tale, and it's really interesting. It's a lot of nonverbals in the acting, especially from the female's character. She almost acts like a siren, which is actually kind of what the Maiden's Tune is about. And Prisoner of Song or Maiden's Tune, that's kind of what it translates to. It's a really good short as well, but I think I liked the second short, and then also Leptirica the most. But yeah, this is actually a really great disc. It might be the weakest of the things that I've seen thus far, but it's a really great journey, and I really quite enjoyed it. So that's disc 3. All right, let's move on to disc 4, which actually has our first double feature in Witchammer and V. Let's talk about Witchammer first. I almost said Witchammer. Anyway, Witchammer is from 1970. It is a Czech film, and it is directed by Otakar Vavra. I hope I said that name correctly. And really is a film that is more of a political drama of a sense. It's more of like a court hearing. It's a lot like Witchfinder General in the sense that it's about witches and this witchfinder who's coming into town to pretty much persecute anyone and everyone that goes against his way. And that's what's so kind of terrifying about this film, is the power dynamic, especially in this particular film, which is more centered around, just taking the power away from women. And it just seems like he just is a man who hates women, and is pretty much anyone who tries to defend these women are also going to be executed. And it is not a happy film whatsoever, in the sense that you would think that a film like this would be a little bit more action-oriented, but like I said, it is more of a courtroom drama mixed in with torturous scenes, because this is a film that actually, in a sense, I think is a little bit ahead of its time with the graphic nature of it all, because it does show you some of the kind of the torture devices used by the Witchfinder in this film, and it is definitely not easy to see. There are moments in here that are actually pure joy and happiness. And in fact, actually, the opening shot of the women in the bathhouse are pretty much like free, and can kind of do whatever they want, in the sense that like they're free of this puritanical kind of religious text that's happening in their, I guess, public life, where in the private life they're a little bit more freeing and can be themselves, right? But this is a really hard film to watch. But anyway, there's a fantastical score in this. Like I said, there is it's more political and dialogue driven. There is some nudity and torture, like I said, that exists in this one. This has some interesting links towards anti-communism, which I think is during the time, this is in the Czechoslovakia, because this is a Czech film in 1970, and I guess the Otakar of Evra has been, I guess, filmed movies way ahead of the time, and around this time, I think the Czech Republic was taken over by the Soviets, more so as a satellite state. So there is some political kind of nods to this, and there's also, like, you can think of like Dreyer. Thinking about Nazism, or you could even think of like the Crucible being more like McCarthyism right here. And these works of fiction really kind of highlight the political struggle of the time period. It really is about this political strife of being beaten into submission, and I think this is a film that really showcases that in a very brutal way. But let's look at the special features real quick. There is audio commentary with Czech film historian and curator Irina Kovarova. I hope I said that name correctly. I did not listen to that, but I have seen Kat Ellinger talk about the womb of woman is the gateway to hell. Appreciation by essayist and critic Kat Ellinger. This is a really interesting piece. Really just talking about this film in particular. There is actually a man, I didn't mention this, there's a narrator in this film that's really not tied to the story, but is kind of just this this woman hater, and is constantly talking and using a lot of imagery in his words, some metaphor and some simile, and just kind of showing, how treacherous women are, and how, they're corrupting things, and how the womb is the gateway to hell. Which is what this particular piece is named from, what Kat Ellinger talks about, which is really interesting. And then it also has a film historian, Michael Brook, talk about that as well. And there's also a projection booth podcast, which I found on Spotify, so if you want to listen to that, it's also there, the projection booth podcast, talking about Witchammer. There's a Witchammer episode with host Mike White and guests Sam Deegan and Rain Alexander. I thought that was a really, really good piece. It kind of plays as like a commentary track, so like the film is in the background. It's only an hour long, so once it hits the hour mark, it goes into the film itself, which I had already seen, so I didn't finish it. But yeah, it's a really good podcast, and I did not know much about it. So yeah, but that was Witchammer. But moving on from that, we have a film, a Russian film called V from 1967. And I am going to completely butcher these directors' names, Konstantin Yershov and Georgy Kropatchev. I hope I said those names correctly, but this is a film from 1967 of an incompetent priest who just happens to stay in this witch's corridor one night and gets flown away for a little bit, but he beats this witch to death. And then it just happens to be a young daughter, and for his, more or less everyone knows he did this, and so for his crimes he has to stand guard of the body for 3 days in this church, and that's where crazy things happen. I probably got the specifics not all correct, because I know there's a lot of people who have seen this film, but that's kind of what I gathered from it. But I really loved the practical effects in this movie. I thought it was a very fantastical film that really just showcased really just the imagination of the folk horror that's involved in this region. And I just think there's really good tracking shots involved as well. And the final 10 minutes are insane, especially when you see V, which he's a thick boy, just saying. But yeah, there's really great practical effects in this film, and there's really great performances from our two main characters, the witch herself and our incompetent priest, right? The philosopher, as they keep calling him. But yeah, I think V was a really fantastic film. I really loved this. I guess it would be closest to Leptirica in the sense of like what it kind of is trying to show you, the incompetence of our main characters. and seeing, the wrath that unfolds upon them. And I really, really enjoy this one. This is a really fun film. But there's also special features on here called From the Woods to the Cosmos, John Lehman Riley on the history of Soviet fantasy and sci-fi film, and he talks a lot about the Soviet Union and a lot about how technology and folk horror and science fiction kind of blended together depending on, it was like right past the revolution, there was a little bit more of an embrace of technology. You would see this more in like maybe German expressionist films, but also like in Soviet films as well, like The Man with the Movie Camera. You would see Ziga Vertov's, the Russian people were really loving the technological aspects, and so they would blend this within the films that they made. And eventually, during the Cold War, obviously the US and the Soviet Union would be heavily investing more into the science fiction realm, kind of implementing technology with horror and these alternate realities of what was going to happen in the future if nuclear Armageddon would occur, right? And then this was mixed in with, the folk horror, right, of the time. And I think this is really a really fascinating 30-minute, visual film essay here, and I really loved it. And it also has 3 short films, 3 early short films from Russia that still survives today. The first one is called The Portrait from 1915. It's about 6 to 7 minutes long. It's really just about a portrait that a man gets, and it starts plaguing him and eventually comes out of the portrait itself. It's actually a really, really cool visual film. The second film being a 13-minute silent film from 1910, based on the short story, The Queen of Spades. And it really is about the spades, the cards, and a woman who happens to be a witch, less being a soothsayer and causing some misery on a guy who takes advantage of her. And then there is a film from 1917, and it's called Satan Exultant, and is really where Satan is trying to drive a man to sin against his will. And I like that one probably the least. But it is a really interesting and fascinating journey to see this, all these different shorts mixed in with, just thinking about the historical context of the Soviet Union. But yeah, these are the first 4 discs within this All the Haunts Be Ours set. I hope I didn't cause anyone to not want to watch those, but I had a really good time with the first 4 discs. And there's going to be a lot more talk on the next 4 once I make this. I think I'm going to make this into 3 parts. That's what I'm going to try to do. And I can talk about each film a little bit more in depth. If anyone has been watching this set or has seen the films within it, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you think of the films that we just talked about, and also what's to come in this box set, because this is a really, really cool set that is really just getting me interested in folk horror and making me want to go down a lot of different avenues. And so anyway, I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Once again, stay tuned for whenever I'm going to be doing the Q&A live stream down in the description down below. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Comment down below, share, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.